reminder. She's good. All right, so statistics, we just talked about, being that you're collecting data or information so that you can make a decision, okay? A statistical question, that's at the top if you need it to copy. A statistical question, okay, is one that collects information addressing the differences or variability in a population, okay? Variability means when you're getting answers, you're not expecting a certain answer, you're expecting them to be different kinds of answers, okay? Now, that is important for something called research questions. Okay, so research questions are answered from statistical analysis. What does it mean to analyze something? To look at it, to see what you got, to see what the information is telling you. So you're studying it. You're trying to pull some information from it so that you can find the best decision or an answer to a question. So you're analyzing the data. They form the basis for the information that will be collected. Now the blank means the outcome of the data may be different. And it should be different. And that's the word that I've highlighted here called variability. What's the base word? A variable or something that varies. What is something that varies? It does what? Is it always the same? No, it's something that changes or is different. Okay? Now, the reason for all of that is we're going to look at two things. We're going to look at statistical questions, and we're going to look at non-statistical questions. A statistical question has variability, allowing to have more than one possible response. Okay? So we want more than one possible response. So that means when you ask the question, if you can only get one answer for that question, it's not a statistical question. If when you ask that question, you get a variety of answers, then it's considered statistical. A non-statistical question does not have the variability and has only one expected response. So there's only one. Okay. This takes practice. So thinking about what we just talked about, we're going to decide if it's yes, statistical, or no, if it's not statistical. All right, first question. What teaching styles are used by teachers for managing the behavior of students in this middle school? I will read it again. That's a lot of words. Okay, so this is kind of like a research question. What teaching styles are used by teachers for managing the behavior of students in this middle school? First thing, is there only one way that teachers are allowed to manage students in class? So does it depend on what class you're in or what area you're in the school? So it doesn't? It depends. Like if you're in Ms. Cardozo's room, it might be different than if you're in this classroom, or if you're in the library, or if you're in gym. It depends on what you're doing, okay? So, what teaching styles are used by teachers for managing the behavior of students in this middle school? Is that a statistical question? Can I get more than one possible answer for that question? Yes. Okay, so that's going to be a yes. There's more than one possible answer. What are some different ways that your behavior is managed?
ISS.
Okay, so there's consequences that can be issued. What else? Oh, okay, you all are only thinking of the negative.
A phone.
Oh, okay, but are there positive though that help you to answer?
I mean,
What
PBIS celebration.
Oh, the PBIS celebration. So that kind of thing. So you get rewards as well. So there's different ways that teachers, do you sometimes get a warning and before the consequence? You don't? No? Okay. So different things to think about. All right, next one. How many hours per week, on average, do students in our school exercise outside of school activities? This is a question that's being asked, and it's a long question with a lot of information. hours per week, on average, do students in our school exercise outside of school activities? If I ask this question, who would I be asking? Okay, the students. In asking that question, am I going to get only one answer that's the same for everyone?
No.
Why not?
Because different people do different stuff outside school.
Different people do different things after school? Okay, so is this a statistical question? Am I going to get different answers for this question?
Yeah.
So it is statistical. It's a yes. It will get easier the more we practice. Number 3. Who has the longest name in our class? Who has, I don't want the answer to the question, we're just seeing if it's statistical or not. Who has the longest name in our class? Okay, is that a question that I can ask? Okay.
Yeah.
Am I going to have a variety of answers?
No.
Why not?
Because the longest person. Yeah, it's only one person.
Oh, so is this statistical?
No.
It's not. Because it doesn't matter. We're going to get to that later. Doesn't matter. This is a no. The reason it's no is there's no variability. Everybody would hopefully agree that we could say, you know what, everybody write your name down, count the letters. We're going to have one answer for that question, so it's not statistical. All right, number 4. What was the temperature this morning at 6 a.m. at Raleigh-Durham International Airport? Okay, I can ask the question. What kind of answers would I get? DeMarcus, what kind of answer would I get for that? Would I get different answers for that one question? What would I get? Say again. I would get what? I just couldn't hear you. One answer. If it's one answer, is it statistical? No. So this is a no. If you ask that question, does it have an answer? Yeah. How many answers does it have? 1. Because it's 1, it's not statistical. Number 5. Does getting fewer than 8 hours of sleep the night before a standardized exam make 6th graders more likely to do poorly on their EOGs at Chowan Middle School?
Yeah.
Well, hold on. It's not a yes or no question. We got to look and see if it's statistical. So does getting fewer than 8 hours of sleep the night before a standardized exam make 6th graders more likely to do poorly on their EOGs at Chowan Middle School? Okay, so is it statistical or not statistical? Statistical, why? Am I going to get different answers for that? Okay. If I asked this question and I wanted to get the answer, what would I do? If this intrigues me and I want to know the answer to this, what would I have to do?
Ask
Well, who would I ask?
the students.
When?
Before we take the EOG.
Before they take the EOG. Okay, so I asked what would I ask them?
How many hours of sleep did they get?
What would I ask?
How many hours of sleep did they get?
How many hours of sleep did you get last night? Okay, and what would I do? Write it down. And then what?
See what they got on their test.
See what they get on their EOG. Would everybody be in that data?
No.
Who would be in that data?
6th grade.
True. 6th grade. What else? All 6th graders?
See? I don't know why I said see that.
Huh? Say again? Well, look carefully. What am I looking for at Chowan Middle School?
Hours.
Well, how many?
How many hours? 8
How many
hours.
Fewer than 8 hours.
What is it? Fewer than 8 hours. So I would ask everybody the same question. I'd say, how many hours of sleep did you get last night? How many hours of sleep? And I write it down. But when I get the scores back, if I'm trying to find the answer to this question, where am I going to focus? On those students who what? Got less than 8 hours. And what am I going to look at? Their score to see how they did. Okay? Does that make sense? It's statistical. I can gather that information to find an answer to the question. Okay? So that is a yes. All right, number 6. How many aunts and uncles do you have? I want you to raise your hand if you say yes. It's statistical. Raise your hand if you say no, it's not statistical. Okay? Who would like to defend their answer?
6.
Yes or no? What do you think? Adriana?
I think it's yes. I think it's statistical.
Okay, why?
Like, say,
Who would I ask this question to?
the students,
Oh, look at the question again. Who am I asking?
a person.
A person. If I ask a person that question, how many answers are they going to have for me?
Oh,
Is that statistical? Why not?
because it's only one.
It's only one person, and they're only going to have one answer. Okay, so that's a no. Now, if I ask the class, if I ask the whole class or my whole 6th grade, how many aunts and uncles do you have? Is that statistical?
Yes, because you're asking more than one person.
I'm asking more than one person, and am I going to get the same answer? Probably not. It's going to vary. Some may have 0, some may have 14 or 15 or 20. It just depends on their family. Okay? I don't know. Number 7. What proportion of students at your school eat cold pizza? What proportion of students at your school eat cold pizza? Raise your hand if you say yes, that's statistical. Raise your hand if you say no, it's not statistical. Okay? What do you think? Why? Defend one or the other. For bonus points. What do you think? Jolanda, you say yes or no?
Yes.
Because?
Because some students might like cold pizza and the others might not.
Am I asking more than one person?
Yeah.
Am I going to get a possible more than one answer?
Yes.
So is it statistical?
Yes.
Yes. Good job. All right, and number 8. What? You know what that is? What is the relationship between playing AAU basketball in elementary school and making the varsity basketball team in high school? I'll read it again because that's a lot of information. What is the relationship between playing AAU basketball in elementary school and making the varsity basketball team in high school? Now, anytime you have a question, you have to understand what's being asked. Does anybody have a question on any part that's in that question? Because I had a question. What is AAU basketball? Deontay, I heard you say that you knew. What is it? No. Not sure? Who can tell me? What is AAU? What is it? What do you mean?
Like a basketball team that play all over the world.
Oh, so like they go to different places and play. It's not like rec. What kind of level is that?
It's like harder than that.
It's harder. Do you have to try out for it? Do you? Or just pay for I don't know how it works. That's why I'm asking.
You can pay or you
You kind of pay or you have to try out, but it gives you more what? Experience? Okay. So, I have a question. If I'm interested in finding out the answer to this, who am I going to ask?
The players.
The players. When? Does it matter?
No.
It doesn't matter when. So I'm going to go to elementary school and I'm going to ask them, can I find out the answer to this question by asking students in elementary school? Why not?
Because they don't know what's in high school.
They don't know what's going to come in high school. So who should I ask if I want to find out?
High school.
Who would I ask?
High school.
What would I ask them?
What's the difference? Yeah, what's the difference between
what's the relationship?
Well, what would I ask them? I'm not going to give them this. This is my question I'm trying to find the answer to. So what would I ask?
What's the difference between AAU and high school?
I would say, what is the difference between AAU and high school basketball? And that's going to answer this question. So if I'm going to do a survey and I'm trying to collect, I'm trying to get my stats on this, my statistics, I need to know what question to ask. First, who am I going to ask? High schoolers. It just all high schoolers? Who am I going to ask in high school? The ones what? That play what? So who am I going to go to? Basketball players that are on the basketball team, right? And what question am I going to ask those high school basketball players?
What's the difference between? What's the difference between?
What's the difference between
Okay, let me
AAU?
read the question again. What is the relationship between playing AAU basketball in elementary school and making the varsity high school team the basketball team. So I'm going to go to the high school basketball team this year, and what question am I going to ask them? Am I going to say, hey, what's AAU basketball? What am I going to ask them so I can find out if there's a relationship between them?
What similarities?
No, what was the difference? What was different?
What am I going to ask them? What am I trying to figure out?
What's the relationship?
How am I going to find that? What am I going to ask them? What is my question going to be? That's the...
Wait a minute, can I?
Absolutely.
Okay, so what if I ask a varsity basketball team member and they say, what's AAU?
What does that tell you about that person?
They what?
Oh.
So what's the question are you going to ask?
Have you played a...
Oh, yes.
Oh, and if I look and does that mean that they're guaranteed to play high school basketball? No, but it might help me to see if there's a connection. If I ask them and nobody on my team has ever played AAU basketball, then as a parent trying to make a decision, if I want my kid to play, I'd be like, it really didn't help. Most of the people on the team never played it before. That's a lot of money to spend. Or if I ask and every single person on that team, or 95% of the team, played AAU basketball, but you know what? That's a pretty good investment. That might help them to get into the high school team. Make sense? So you have to know your audience. You have to know what to ask so that you can get your questions taken care of. Questions on this? All right, so set this to the side, and now we're going to look at what should be reviewed, but you all acted like you didn't know what I was talking about. Mean, median, mode, and range. Do you remember? Raise your hand if you remember last year talking about mean, median, mode, and range. Fair share? No? Okay. All right, well, let's look and see. This is a cheat sheet, so it kind of has it on there. The mean. So we're looking at mean first. The mean is the sum of numbers in a given set of data divided by the total number of numbers in the data set, also known as average. So if you are wondering how your grades are calculated, do we just pick some of them? What goes into finding your average for a class? All the grades. So all the grades go together. They're all calculated as part of it. So when we're talking about mean, we're talking about average. Okay, how do we find the average? What do you have to do first? There's two operations that are included. Look at what we just read. What do I have to do first with the numbers? I have to find a what? Read what this says. What do I have to find? First thing, raise your hand if you can tell me so I can give out some bonus points. What is it, Sienna? The sum. What is sum? Adding them up. So, on this line, we're going to take this example and we're going to add 8 plus 4 plus 12 plus 3 plus 0 plus 5 plus 4 plus 6. We have to find a sum, so we're going to write that down because we're going to have to do that. And then once I find that sum, what does it say we're going to do with it? Two operations in finding the mean or average. What other operation do you see in that definition? Catalea, do you see another operation in there? We're not just going to add, we're going to do what? Yeah, we're going to divide. How do we know what to divide by? The total number of numbers in that data set. So, use your mental math. Put numbers together that make it a little bit easier. Or, to make it even easier than that, you should be able to have Desmos on the EOG. So, you may open up your Chromebook, go to Desmos, so that we can find the sum and find the average. So, we're going to add them together, and how do I know what to divide by? How many numbers am I adding together?
8.
So 8's going to go on the bottom. Okay? So put into Desmos all 8 numbers. And then find that total and divide by 8. So first I need a total. So plug. 42. Okay. I got 2 people. Can I get some more people to verify that? Killian, did you get a total? 42? Okay. So I got 42. What am I dividing by?
8.
Where did I get that from?
All the numbers.
The numbers, how many numbers there were. So plug that in. Use Desmos. 42 divided by 8. What do you get, Keontae? 5 and 25 hundredths. Now, whenever you're finding a mean, you're going to have a high number and a low number. And if your average is not between it, your mean is not between it, you need to go back and look. Okay? So if you have grades of a 70 and an 80 and a 70 and a 69 and a 80 and a 74, you're not going to get a 90 average. Why? Because you don't have those higher numbers. So it's going to be somewhere in between. Okay? So that's something to keep in mind when you get an answer to see if it makes sense. Questions? All right, so mode. Notice these two are underlined. Mode. It is the number that occurs most often in a set of data. Okay, you can have no mode, or you can have more than one mode. But it needs to be most often, the MO. So looking at our list again, which number occurs most often? Do I need a calculator for this? Which one occurs most often? Okay, so I have more than one. Is there any other number that's on there more than once? Is that it? So what's my number? It's a 4. 4 is the mode since it occurs most often. Now, what if I had a list of numbers and none of them occurred? What would I write for the answer for mode? If they were all different numbers, what would I put? I heard somebody say something, but I'm not sure what it was. If I have all different numbers, what's my mode going to be? Look back at what it says. What am I going to put? No mode. You have to write it out, no mode or none, but don't put a 0. Why not? They're going to think that 0 is the number, okay? And so we're not going to put a number. We're going to write the word no mode or none, okay? Questions? Before we go, we're going to take this list and we're going to put them in order for the median. So we have the median is the number in the middle, but it has to be an organized list. Okay, organized meaning least to greatest. Don't forget to put in order and you're finding the one in the middle. I suggest that you mark them off. What is my smallest number?
0.
All right, so I'm going to put the 0. Mark that off. What's next?
3.
All right, so I put the 3. Mark that off. What's next? Okay, so how many 4s do I put? Should put 2 of them because we have 2 listed. What's next?
5.
And if you mark them off, it makes it easier. What's next?
6.
Then?
8.
Then?
12.
Okay. We're going to find when we come back the one that's in the middle and talk about what to do if there's more than one in the middle. Get what you need for lunch and line up behind the tubs. Okay, looking at, before we left for lunch, trying to find the median. Now, somebody had asked earlier in another class, how do we keep everything straight? Well, mean is the same as average. So all of your grades, you add them up and divide by how many you have. And sometimes that's mean when you don't get the grade you want, but it's just the average of your grades. Mode, MOs, most often, median. On the interstate, on a highway, what part of the road is the median? The middle. That's where sometimes flowers grow, sometimes they mow it, sometimes there's signs that say do not mow because there are flowers. Sometimes there's trees. Sometimes there are emergency vehicles, police officers that are in the middle, running radar, trying to catch people that are speeding. But it's the middle. So remember median being the middle. Now that we have our list, I suggest that you underline the first number and the last number. Underline going to the middle on the inside. If you do that, then you can use it for other information. So now, how many do I have in the middle? I have 2, but I just need one value. So when we have 2 in the middle, we have to find their average. How do I find an average for something? Add it. So if I add 4 plus 5 and I get a sum, what am I going to divide by? How many numbers did I add together? 2. So what am I going to divide by? 2. You have Desmos. Put that in. If you need Desmos for the first part, or just put in the sum and then divide by 2. And what do you get for the median? The median's going to be what? Catalay?
4.5.
Okay. So you have 4 5/10 or 4.5 for the median. So it is the number that is between 4 and 5, which makes sense. 4.5 or 4.5. Questions? Okay. Next one is a range. Have you ever gone shopping for a gift and you know that you have a certain price range? What does that mean, to have a price range for a gift? What does that mean, Virginia? What does a price range mean? Okay, so there's a top number, but is there a number that I kind of want to start with? I don't want to go under. Okay, so like my price range might be $10 to $15 for somebody. So I'm looking for that zone as far as prices. Same thing's going to happen here. So we are going to look for a range, being the difference. Okay, so difference, and it's between the greatest and the least numbers in that data set. This is the same data set. What would be easier to look at that we just did? How could I find the greatest number and the least number? Where could I find that easily? What did I do for median? What do you have to do first for median? What do we do for median? Yeah, we put them in order. So if I look at that list, what's the smallest number? 0. What is the greatest number? 12. So we take the greatest number, that's 12. We take the least number, that's 0. And we find the difference. What's 12 minus 0? That is your range. That tells you that there are 12 possibilities between the two. They go from 12 to 0, okay, as far as the numbers in that set. But we only had how many numbers? How many numbers were in our list? 8, okay. So, recap. We have mean. How do we find mean? What do we do? Add them all together and what? Yeah, you got to know how many numbers you added together. So when I do grades, if I do it by hand, I add all your grades together and then I count how many I have, and I take that total and divide by that number to get a grade. Okay, that's what the computer does now for me. It used to not. I used to have to do it all by hand a long time ago. Computers didn't have, I had a calculator, but no computer did it for me. I had to do it by hand. Okay, mode. What do I remember for mode? How am I going to remember that? Okay, you gotta get it waking up. I know we just had lunch. Mode. What was my hint for mode that I told you? What does mode start with? M-O. What does M-O help us to remember? Most often. So we're looking for the number that occurs most often. And it's a 4. Is it always going to be one mode? It could be 2 modes, or it could be 3, or it could be 0. We could have no mode. Okay, so if it has no mode, we would put that or put none. Okay, and then we talked about median. What do you have to do first for median? Got to put it in order and then find the one that's in the middle. We did this because we had 2 in the middle. What if I just have 1 in the middle? What is that one number? It's the answer. So in this case, if I have 2 in the middle, I have to find one number. If I have one number in the middle, that's your answer, okay? And the Ed puzzle is going to talk about that you work on. Finally is the range. What 2 numbers am I looking for? And what do I do with them? Subtract. Okay, I need you to glue these two into your notebook. After they're glued in, you may get headphones. Listen carefully. Desk notes can be used to help you. You're going to start with the iReady. The iReady is dealing with statistical questions like we did in class. Okay, when you finish that, there is an ed puzzle. We're going to go until 1:30, and then we're going to stop so that we can get the homework passed out, and you can make sure if you have questions you ask. Okay, so get these glued in, and then I'm going to set the timer for 30 minutes. You have 30 minutes that you can work. That's a lot of minutes. And